Alright, so we're going to take a look today at simplifying some rational expressions. These first four examples I already have factored, and that's something that you want to keep in mind that you always need to do before you simplify the fractions, is that you need to factor the numerator and the denominator separately before you can cancel out any common factors. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few problems here. The first problem, I see that I have two quantities, and I'm going to circle these quantities. This isn't necessarily something that you would do as you solve the problem, but I'm going to circle them just to point out what they are. X plus 2 is a quantity, and it appears in the numerator and denominator, so we can cancel those out, and they both become a 1. It's just like 6 divided by 6 or 23 divided by 23. Whenever you divide something by itself, it's a 1. So what we're left with is x squared over x, and to simplify this we use the division property of exponents. We just subtract the exponents. We're going to make that a 1, and we're going to get rid of this x entirely. So we're just left with an x as our final answer, x to the first. Okay, we could have done it right here too. We could have made that a 1 and crossed that x out. Alright, let's look at number 2 here. I see that I have two quantities that I can get rid of, and I also see that I have this factor right here, this 3 and this 6, and I can reduce that 3 over 6 and make it 1/2. So my new answer, my answer to this problem, is going to be the quantity x minus 5. I multiplied it by that 1, but it gives me itself right back, over top of 2 t to the 4th would be my answer. Now if you look at number 3 and number 4, these two rational expressions, neither one of them can be factored any further, and therefore we can't actually simplify them any further either. A lot of people might want to take the 3x and try to cross that out, but that's not something that we can actually do. I'm going to delete or erase these other ones here. There we go. That's not something we can do because this 3x in the numerator is attached to the 2 with this plus sign. Okay, so in order to get rid of the 3x plus 2 up top, we'd actually need an entire 3x plus 2 down low to cross that out. But we don't have that, so there's nothing we can do. Same thing with 5y plus 6. This 6 is attached to that 5y. It's all one quantity, so I'm not allowed to do something like that. It does not work, so we can't do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last two questions here and do a little simplifying. In number 5, number 5, I have 2x plus 8, which I can cancel out. I also have 3x plus 4, and I don't have to do this at this point, but I'm going to rewrite the problem so that it's a little easier to see what I'm working with. Alright, so now I see that I can reduce this 12 over 6 to 2 over 1, and I'm going to subtract the exponents on my x's, so that's 12 is going to be a 4. And my final answer would be 2 over x to the 4th power, just like that. Alright, this last problem needs to be factored actually. I haven't factored this one. So if I look in the numerator, I see that I have an 8 that I can factor out along with the letter v. And I'll be left with v minus 8. And then in the denominator, I notice that I have a difference of squares. So I'm going to set up two sets of parentheses. I already put my 8 in there, but one has a plus and one has a minus. And the square root of 64 is 8. I have to put it first because 64 came first over here. And the square root of v squared is v. Now, from here, there's actually nothing that I can cross out, no common factors. But I notice that I have a pair of opposites. I have v minus 8 and I have 8 minus v. And in order to get rid of opposites, what I can do is I can factor out a negative 1. So I'm going to write this as one extra step. I'm going to keep the 8v times the quantity v minus 8 over the quantity 8 plus v times the quantity, now look what I'm going to do here. I'm going to write this as v minus 8, and in order to do that I'm going to pull a negative 1 out in front. You see I changed the sign, the v became positive and the 8 became negative. Switched the signs, and I could do that because of this negative 1 that I factored out. Now what I'll do is go ahead and cross out my common factors, and my answer, I'm going to write it over here. I think that's where I have a little bit of room. I have 8v over negative 1 times the quantity. I need to keep the parentheses, or otherwise I'd have to distribute that negative 1. So 8v over negative 1 times the quantity 8 plus v would be my final answer. Up here, let me show you some alternate ways of writing the answer that would be equally acceptable. I could distribute the negative 1, and that would give me a negative 8 minus v. I could also put the negative up with the 8v, just say negative 8v over v plus 8. Notice I didn't change the signs in the denominator there. And one other way I could do this is to put the negative right in front of the fraction bar, and if I do that I can drop the parentheses as well. So those are 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways to write the answer. They're all acceptable. You just have to make sure that somehow you have to account for that negative when you're simplifying here. The big thing to remember is that you always factor before you try to reduce. Otherwise you're not going to be able to simplify your fractions.